Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, on the first episode of Why Does This Exist, we're going to be taking a look at the Olight Baldr Pro. Now, before we get into anything, Olight did send this out to me, and on top of that, I also have affiliate links for them. And if you click on those links and purchase something, I will make 10%. Now, I'm not interested in taking your money. I don't need their money. So this is going to be a very unbiased, fairly negative review if you didn't get that by the title of the video. So first off, let's go ahead and get into some of the boring specifications. What you see here is a completely aluminum body, which is quite nice. It's about 4.5 ounces without batteries in there. You add batteries, you're around the 6 ounce mark, which is perfectly fine. It's very comparable to other lights in the same category. It's not a terribly large light. If we compare that to the TLR1 clone that is currently on my Glock 17, it's about the same size, maybe a tiny bit smaller. Now the light itself, it is a fairly white light. It has 1350 lumens and about 15,000 candela. So it's actually a pretty decent, pretty bright light. Inside of 60, 70 yards, it's going to do a very, very good job of illuminating a wide area. It's not going to be very focused, very pinpoint like some other rifle lights will be. However, this does do a good job of illuminating a large surface area. Now on top of that, the Baldrs basically all of them have different modes. So they have just your basic white light, and then their claim to fame is they also have integrated either green or red lasers. Now, the laser itself is quite bright and it's zeroable on the unit, which is not great, and it doesn't really hold zero, so we'll talk about that in just a minute. However, it does have that additional feature. I don't think that visible lasers are really all that useful on handguns, especially polymer framed handguns that don't hold zero very well to begin with. So if you're trying to use a laser pointer, you're better off with your sights that are mounted to a steel slide, or your optic itself. Something like that on a pistol is a much better way to aim than a laser attached to a light attached to a polymer rail. Now, fortunately and unfortunately, it uses a very common style battery. These are just CR123As. It uses 2 of them to achieve its maximum power. The problem with them is that we'll get into this in a minute, but it does have some issues with battery compatibility between CR123As, so that is a problem in and of itself. For instance, on these Surefire high quality batteries, it does not like to actually lock in place. Okay, did I get it? Nope, it still won't lock in place. You have to exert a very large amount of force to actually get that door hinge in the back to lock in place. So currently it is locked up and working a-okay. Go and put that back to the white light mode. The white light is quite good. I don't really have many complaints about the light itself. Now, something that a lot of people are going to like about the light is that it does have a very simple style mounting mechanism. So it basically has a locking block for a Glock, and it also comes with a Picatinny mount, but the Glock is the one that comes installed from the factory, and that's the one that I was using on, again, my Glock 17. So to tighten it down, you simply flip it to the locked position, and then on the other side, you can torque it down using a flathead screwdriver to your desired specification. There's gonna be a lot of play in between different handguns, as there's almost no true uniformity between different handgun mounting options. This should fit basically every handgun on the market, but again, your mileage may vary. And again, it also comes with a Picatinny kit, so if you're using it on a long gun, and you can just mount it direct to Picatinny without any issue. So last and most important on any sort of pistol mounted weapon light is going to be the switch design. So how is it activated basically? So you have 2 symmetrical buttons on either side, on the right and left hand side. A very quick press will get you to constant on, and then you press it to turn it off. And if you do a press and hold, it will of course stay on in momentary, and as soon as you release it, turns itself off. Now the problem with this is you kind of need to press either forward or inwards inside of the gun. So instead of pressing down on a TLR1 style or Surefire style of light, you have to press inward on the gun, which is a little bit more awkward. So most of the time after I got used to it, I did do a lot of dry fire with this light. Most of the time I was using it in its constant mode, so I would just flick it on with my finger as I was going to the trigger and then use it from there, and then when I was done, just turn it off. Now here you can see it mounted on my Glock 17 Gen 3. Yes, we are clear. Now this has an aftermarket slide and some other aftermarket parts on it, but basically the frame is basically standard. It just has a sort of rubber texturized grip on it. Now this is really where the problem starts. So when you go to activate the light, if you want to use momentary, you have to push kind of inwards and forward to maintain the light being on. Now the very first problem that I ran into with this light is that with the batteries that they include from the factory, they do not maintain the function of the light. So basically something was wrong with the batteries from the factory. It would flicker, it would turn off, it wouldn't turn back on. I would have to fiddle with the batteries, take them out and put them back in to get them to work. And then under recoil, after just a couple rounds, it would turn itself off again without me doing it. It was an issue with the batteries from the factory that were just, something was wrong with them that was not allowing the gun to work. Turns off during that. Oh, turned itself off. I didn't. That's lame. All right. That answers that question. And the second very major issue came up during a string of fire. I believe I was just going to do like a string of like 6 rounds on a singular target. And so I pushed out the gun, activate the light while pushing forward with it, because that's how you activate the switches using momentary. And on the second or third round, the light flew off the front of the gun. Now the problem with that is that I'm pressing forward with my left hand, right? So as the light flies forward, my hand goes in front of the gun during a string of fire. I very nearly could have shot myself if I didn't stop shooting. So that is obviously a pretty major downside, that I almost shot myself while using this light while it was properly attached and torqued down. Thing fell off. Cool. I'm glad I didn't actually shoot myself because my finger went forward when it went off. Now, I'm not just going to say that the switches themselves are bad or they need to be redesigned, because I know some people do like them and they like to use that constant on or off and they don't like using momentary. However, if you're somebody who likes momentary, these are probably not the switches for you. And in fact, the switches would be fine. They're very tactile and they click on and off just fine. That would all be fine if the light didn't come flying off my gun during a string of fire. Now, on top of that, the other selling point of having one of these Baldrs is of course going to be the laser unit. Now the problem with a laser unit on a polymer framed gun is that it does not hold zero. And again, I had this torqued down to an extreme degree on this rail, and during recoil, or even just depending on how I was pushing it for momentary on, you can see the laser flex off to the left or to the right. And after a couple hundred rounds on the handgun, it had come off target to the point where I was no longer able to hit a 11.5 by 20 at about 50 yards. So it's not going to hold zero for you all that well. Now, because it is easily adjustable, you could just, after every magazine or couple magazines, keep re-zeroing it to your optic or to your iron sights. However, it's not a very great aiming mechanism to begin with, especially when your handgun is already equipped with a set of sights. So you don't necessarily need a laser to begin with, especially a visible laser. An IR laser might make more sense if you don't have an optic on it. But in this case, since we're using it as a white light plus laser unit, not all that useful. Some people might like it for like home defense, or for instance, if you have some sort of disability and you can only use one hand, then having a laser, a visible laser, might be a great help to you. However, on the polymer framed gun with a combination of this unit itself, does not hold zero, or at least hold zero very well. Now, another major downside to the light is going to be holster compatibility. Now, I did look around online and there are a half dozen manufacturers that are making light holsters for this specific light in a bunch of different gun combinations. The problem that I have with that is that almost none of them are professional or duty style holsters. For instance, I have a plethora of different holsters here, more duty style holsters, Safariland, Black Hawk, and Omnivore, which sucks, but that's a different story for a different day, that are all going to be compatible with TLR1 style of lights, TLR1, TLR, HLs, that sort of thing. Where they are not going to be for the Baldr Pro. So you might be able to find some concealed carry or maybe some outside the waistband holsters for it, but you're not going to be able to find anything professional / duty style for it. Even these older designs, these are the 6378, you can find these for under $100, which is about the same price as like a high quality concealed carry holster. And this one here is again for the TLR1 or TLR1 clones like the LAPG WXL. So there are concealed carry, more standard style holsters for the Baldr Pro. However, there are not going to be any professional duty grade holsters for it. Now, another problem with this light, and this is going to be the final nail in the coffin, is that this light retails for $150. Which again, for the performance is a big problem. The laser is technically a selling point, but it doesn't hold zero very well on the most popular handguns in the world. So probably not a big selling point there. The light is bright, but you're going to have battery and switch issues, or at least I have had in my specific unit. It is entirely possible that I just received an absolute dud, but this is the unit that I'm testing, so this is the unit that I am reviewing. Now, for some people, $150 seems very, very cheap, especially when you consider that a TLR2, which is basically the version of the TLR1 with a red laser, that is about $250 to $350, depending on where you get it for. So if you're comparing it to that light, you say, oh, well, that's actually a great value. It's about half the cost. The problem with that is that Streamlight's own TLR1 HLs are anywhere from $100 to $150, and yes, the Baldr is going to go on sale for like $110 to $150. It's going to be somewhere in there depending on where you get it from. But the LAPG WXL, this is a TLR1 clone. This is about $60, and I have done absolutely terrible things with this. I have taken it to classes. I've shot thousands and thousands of rounds on it. This has been my concealed carry gun and light for years now, and it is held up very, very well. On top of that, the switches on this are TLR1 style, which are much more natural for me if you like to use momentary, and I do prefer momentary, especially on this, because it's downward pressure, so I'm basically just using it like a gas pedal when I want to activate it, so it helps me control recoil a little bit better, so I do like the switch design on here more. And again, this is only $60, never given me an issue, compatible with all batteries that I've tested in it, submerged it, I've thrown it, done terrible, terrible things to this light, and it has held up very, very well. On top of that, the standard TLR1 and TLR1 HL are anywhere from $100 to $150, and that's going to be a much higher quality light, much better QC, much better QA, and on top of that, they're actually going to fit a wide variety of holsters. Now, if you have this light and you absolutely love it, well, that's fine. If you have a real use case for it that actually makes sense. For me, I cannot recommend it based on performance, and I can't recommend it based on price either, as there are lights much cheaper that do a very similar job of overall light. This one here only has 800 lumens, but it has about the same candela, so it has a more tight focus beam, and again, inside of 60, 70 yards, both of these do a very good job of illuminating both the target and a large area around it. If you're out there just to chase lumen numbers, I think there's a Baldr model with like 1500 lumens, and I think that's kind of the selling point. Somebody sees really high lumens and they think, okay, this is going to be like the best light on the market, when that is just not the case. So at the end of the day, do I recommend the Baldr Pro? The answer is no. I can't recommend it on its price. I can't recommend it on its performance or holster compatibility or a wide variety of other things, especially with all the issues that I've had with it. So that is about it for the video. Let me know what you guys think of this light or other similar lights down in the description. I will see you guys in the next episode of Why Does This Exist?